And Will, I want to talk about that story, China hacking the Treasury Department, which has all of our financial information on individuals. I mean, it has everything. This is the organization, the department in the government that oversees the IRS, that oversees the printing of the US dollar and our money. So when you hack into their system successfully, you can compromise every single American, whether you're talking about a president down to someone who is a butler at the White House and everyone in between. They are all exposed, and we now believe they've all been exposed to our probably number one adversary. They're not yet a full-on enemy because the amount of trade that we do and the reliance we have on each other, but especially the reliance we unfortunately have on China to produce goods. And will, because of that, we're kind of limited right now in how we can respond to China. That's why in these next 4 years, we've got to be able to get off of China. You know what I mean? It's great when we can work together. That'd be wonderful. It was a better system. But we have got to get ready and do the hard things in America to make sure we could exist just like we do today with all of the technology and be able to build it here in the United States. Don't let China buy every mine in Africa. They are currency manipulators. We have the money to do it. Let's do it. Let's get more active. Let's make sure we have the access to the materials. Why on earth are we letting the Chinese beat us there? It's because you have half of Washington, D.C. or more, Will, thinks they're our friends, thinks that we can work with them on a friendly relationship. They see all these moves as a strategic way to take down the U.S. superpower that we are in the world. And I don't think we've been weaker ever to an attack like that, which is not a physical military attack, but is an attack on our entire financial institution. And so they want to prove by doing that they're actually the superpower in the world. So again, another reason why to support the American Center for Law and Justice. We're not just active in the United States. We're active all over the world. Some countries I can tell you about, some I can't, to protect those who are working there. But one that I can tell you about, places like Pakistan, where a former prime minister is in prison and a lot of people are calling for his release. And I will tell you, in the 2 years he was president, the persecution issues, yes, they still existed. But if we got to his team, they were handled much more quickly than the current administration in Pakistan. And we have those, like our client who's on death row since they were 16 years old. So many of the cases the ACLJ does, our European affiliate, the ECLJ does, our office in Pakistan, Jerusalem, Jeff Balaban. A lot of these cases, I know it's hard to kind of imagine in the United States, Will, but a lot of these cases we do are life or death. I mean, this is not just protecting people's rights to talk or have a belief. This is whether or not they will be executed tomorrow or not.
That's right, Jordan. And as you look at this story that comes out of the New York Times, it says China hacked the Treasury Department in a major breach, the U.S. says. And it raises so many questions at the end of this administration about cybersecurity of our most important government institutions, about the weakness of the Biden administration, about the fears of the Chinese Communist Party, about the incoming presidency of Donald Trump. But I have Professor Harry Hutchison here with me. And one, it also makes me very glad that politicians like Tim Walz are not going to be the sitting vice president because of their ties to China and their views on them as not really being an adversary. But Professor Hutchison, with this news late in the year, right here at the end of the year, what was your take when you saw this attack that the Chinese said they don't sponsor or support any sort of hacking, but our intelligence assessments tell us differently?
Well, number one, we should never believe the Chinese. They are long-term enemies to American interest. That's number one. Number two, the United States is increasingly vulnerable to the Chinese, in part because so many American government workers work remotely. Therefore, they're tied to unencrypted servers, just like Hillary Clinton. And that means that we are even more vulnerable. So I think it's clear beyond question that the United States is at war with China, Russia, and Iran within the realm of intelligence. And so I think it's very important to keep in mind that the incoming administration, the Trump administration, is increasingly aware of our vulnerability, and we need to take immediate action. Number one, we need to ensure that government workers return to government offices and start using encrypted servers. That would help. And then number two, we should take action against China. We should take action against Iran and any other hostile players out there. And I think Jordan is absolutely correct. We have to begin to look out for America's long-term interest. And I think with the Biden administration has been overtly focused on whom? On Ukrainian interests, on Chinese interests, on the Biden family's capacity to engage in grift. And so I think it's very, very important that we have adults in the room with the Trump-Vance administration.
And Jordan, I think also it tells us why one of our early fights in 2025 will be to get Tulsi Gabbard confirmed as the Director of National Intelligence. When you have a big intelligence problem like a hack of the Treasury Department, you need change there very quickly.
Right. I mean, I want to remind people that Tulsi, if she is confirmed in this position, will be briefing the President of the United States, President Trump, every morning on the threats to the United States and new intelligence. So imagine that an ACLJ colleague, former Democrat, who we have worked with before in the past, along the way, when we see that she is beginning to speak out more, do a little bit more media, we say, hey, can you join us a couple of times a week and join the ACLJ and the secular broadcast? And she's been a great team member here at the ACLJ, because I think where she is on these issues is where so many of our supporters are, is that we have to question these institutions, that we cannot just accept that the vast majority of the intelligence community is out to do good, and that we should just let them do their job and never look in and never change things and never maybe look at the laws that allow those institutions and agencies to quickly in a secret court treat you differently. Now, you're not going to be able to handle full FISA court reform in a day on Capitol Hill, and there's those pressures to do that. We've got to have the time. We need the time so that we replace those kind of institutions that are so important with ones that actually work, that keep us safe, both from our enemies, but also our own government's bad actors. Donate today, our biggest, most important day of the year. Be part of our team, aclj.org. We need your donation. I can't say it any more closely. We got to hit our goals to be ready to fight. aclj.org. Donate, have your donation tripled till midnight tonight.